Hi everybody, this is Jacob Lighthall. I'm with Group 1. We're going to be taking a look at the economic factors surrounding Kenya, Botswana, Tanzania, and South Africa. Kenya is going to be the one we're looking at first. They have a GDP of 109.12 billion compared to the United States 22.2 trillion. This means that they have a pretty decent one compared to other African countries, but compared to the United States, they're still emerging. So that's just something to remember looking forward. They have a GINI index rating of 40.80 compared to the United States 41.50. The GINI index rating measures income inequality. When it's lower, there's less inequality. When it's higher, there's more inequality. So they're doing good in that sense. Kenya has an unemployment rate of 40% compared to the United States with an unemployment rate of 4.4%. They have an average household income of 1,180 per year, as opposed to the United States, 43,585. So a couple of the key factors to note here: they have a very high unemployment rate, and that could be due to the types of industry, which are agriculture, and because of the downturn of agricultural success in the past. So opportunities and threats. Historically, Kenya has taken steps to further privatize the economy. This could mean significant possibilities for advancing into the market. Structural adjustment was a recent objective of the new government that took power in the early 2000s to further privatize multiple industries. With the newfound government and restructuring with further debt restructuring soon followed predicted high growth moving forward. So this is something to keep in mind. They're trying to restructure debt and privatize, and that could be profitable for companies moving into the country. This is just a couple of charts looking at prior year downfalls. I just wanted to show this because these are periods of pretty big highs and lows for GDP. This is due to the droughts that they face pretty frequently, and that's probably why the unemployment rate is so high now. So taking a look at Tanzania, they have a GDP of 64.89 billion compared to the United States 22.2 trillion. This is less. It's on the lower end of the African countries. Tanzania has a GINI index rating of 37.8 as compared to the United States 41.50. Tanzania has an unemployment rate of 10.4% as compared to the United States 4.4%. Tanzania has an average household income of 2,154. So the average household income compared to their median income and GDP, it's very, very good. The gap is much lower, which means a lot of the GDP, a lot of the income coming into the country is actually going to the households. The higher household income could also signify that there is a higher cost of higher cost of living and also higher quality of living. So a couple opportunities and threats. Despite the low unemployment rate, there still maintains a high rate of poverty. The administration of Tanzania is improving infrastructure by providing more access to financing and education. Strong economic governance and access to natural resources provides hope for the country. And that's the case for a lot of these African countries. They have a lot of natural resources, but they do not have a lot of educated workers. They don't have a lot of financing options, so businesses have a little bit of trouble thriving here. Government economic policies in relation to tax and affordable financing is weak, but they're actively trying to improve that. Again, these are emerging countries, so they are not going to have the best policies in place, but they are moving forward. So recently GDP is down, although recent reports would categorize the environment as robust. Private consumption and investment growth. Inflation recently fell due to improved food supply, and growth is to be stable in the following years. This is another country where agriculture is a very big industry, and in periods of weather and other outside factors, when these are doing well, the country's GDP is going to be doing much better as well. It's also going to directly correlate with unemployment rates. This is just a couple of economic charts. We're going to take a look at GDP. It's fallen a little bit, but the inflation has also fallen, so that's good. We're going to take a look at Botswana. This has the lowest GDP of the 4 African countries that we're going to be looking at today. They have a 28.7 billion GDP compared to the U.S. 22.2 trillion. Botswana has a GINI index rating of 53.3% compared to the United States 41.50. This is going to mean that there's a lot more income inequality than in the United States, as opposed to Kenya and Tanzania. Botswana has an unemployment rate of 20% as compared to the United States 4.4%. The average household income is 3,603, and that's the median for the average household. Botswana has a relatively high household income compared to the other African countries. However, they have a relatively high unemployment rate, which could mean the average household income could indicate higher costs of living. Let's take a look. We're going to take a look at opportunities and threats now. Economic stability depends a lot on mineral and diamond demand. Growth halts quite substantially in periods of poor demand. And there's poor diversification and high unemployment makes for Botswana to be a little bit shaky here. So with a lot of these African countries, they depend on mineral and diamonds. That these are their main industries. And the problem with these is that the income a lot of the times doesn't go right to the people. And that would explain the unemployment rate. If they aren't working in the mines, there's often not a lot of work for people because of their new emerging companies, and there aren't a lot of skilled worker jobs in these countries. The 11th National Development Plan lays out plans to diversify production and promote job enhancement. These plans should promote growth in the mid to long-term periods by improving the workforce and diversifying exports. In January 2018, one of the mines had actually resumed, could mean less employment and potentially higher GDP moving forward. So this is a country that heavily depends on the mines because of mineral and diamond growth. The problem is even if in periods of high GDP, it often means poverty for the people. This is just a GDP chart. It's gone up a bit. Inflation has also gone up though. So this is the last one we're looking at, South Africa. They have the highest GDP of the African countries. They have 386.73 billion. They also have the highest GINI index rating of 63. And they also have an unemployment rate of 27.60, which is it's in the middle ground. But the GINI index rating indicates that there's a lot of income inequality, which means a lot of poverty for South Africa. The unemployment rating means probably that there's an industry in downturn. And the average household income is $5,217, which could mean higher cost of living, as well as higher quality of life. It could go either way with this number here. South Africa has one of the highest household incomes in Africa, and the poor GINI index rating shows that there's a lot of income inequality, and these two numbers could correlate because of that. So some threats faced by South Africa are skilled worker shortages, health sector challenges, and poor communication technologies. Reforms are in place to better economic growth and communication conditions. So one of the big problems is this is the same with a lot of these African countries. They're emerging countries, and they don't have a lot of skilled workers. So a lot of their GDP is dependent on industries like agriculture and mining for minerals and other diamonds. The government is taking steps to improve public living conditions as well as promote an environment for beneficial investments as well as to help economic growth. These are just a couple of things that I noticed they're moving forward to kind of make living conditions a little bit better, and they're also trying to take a stance for better beneficial investments. But they are actually one of the countries that has a more socialist policies. Looking at recent economic news, South Africa suffers from global growth as well as difficulties with trade tensions. They have serious budget issues because of a national health insurance program and other social policies. That kind of circles back to the socialist economic policies. With these socialist economic policies, it puts a burden on the government, so it could have pressure on that budget there. We're just going to take a look at the economic charts here. This is real GDP and the inflation. They've both gone up in relativity, pretty normal. So the currency and exchange rate, the Kenya shilling has an exchange rate of 102.70 to $1. The Botswana pula with an exchange rate of 11.16 to the $1. Tanzania has the shilling with an exchange rate of 2,305.10 to the $. And South Africa has the rand with an exchange rate of 15.67 to $1. For the United States and United States companies, the higher the exchange rate means better for us. We have a little bit more purchasing power. It's a little bit more bang for our buck when we're operating in these countries. And that is it. These are my references. Thank you very much.